This is wonderful. Thank you all for being here. I've been an addiction counselor for 22 years. I'm also a licensed therapist. And the reason I say that is because I've always been attracted by addictions. And I ask myself why, and I believe that the study of addictions is the study of human nature. And nobody's free of addiction. So I get tired of hearing the them and us mentality. We need a paradigm shift. It was funny, Peter, when you were talking about the cycle in the police department, that's the addiction cycle that we teach in addictions. Everything and something, Jessica, you said something about it being logical. It's not, well, of course it's not logical. It's highly emotional. Don't take my best friend away, the thing that makes me feel good. And I'm not talking mostly about substance addictions. I'm talking about behavior addictions. Look at the technology, and the part of our culture is so disconnected. We can make anything an addiction. So I really think we need a paradigm shift. And one of the things I was really interested in what you said was talking about the industry of treatment. Because we know, I mean, 22 years is a long time. We know the system's not working. Nobody really knows what to do. I mean, I know it. I have to take trainings and trainings and trainings. And I think we have to get to the root. It's like cutting off the head and two coming up. It's like cutting roots from the top. I mean, cutting weeds from the top. If we don't get to the root.
Cut off the head of the hydra.
Yeah, and I really believe there's lots of ways to approach it. You're representing 4 different ways. But we need to get to what people are really doing when they alter their consciousness. And they do it with behaviors as much as with substances. And there is nobody in this room, I will go out on a limb and say, that doesn't have something that they use to alter, myself included.
It's a human experience.
And it's not a pathologizing. I don't mean that. I say that with great respect for human beings. But if we don't get real about what we're really talking about, nothing's going to change. And we're up against a paradigm shift, I believe.
Right. And as Peter commented on, he made reference to the story of Adam and Eve. That is a story, a legend that is descriptive of human nature. It's not a story about addiction. It's a story about humanity and about who we are and how we deal with our issues. And it's been really interesting, especially being a member of the clergy, how we are so often associated with this moral mythology that has developed of saying, well, these junkies just really need to get their act together and have good morals and values and just decide to stop using drugs. And it's so more complicated than that, and images like the story of Adam and Eve and eating the apple are used a lot in that. And as the more I've worked on the street level and in addiction counseling, the more it's become obvious to me that this is not a moral issue. What we're dealing with here, as we've talked about tonight, is a political and economic issue, and it's also it's an issue of disease. And as I'm sure you're well with the disease model of addiction treatment, and an image that I think if we were going to pull from the biblical stories that might be more apt, rather than the Adam and Eve eating the apple, I think would be the situation of oppression of the Hebrews under Pharaoh from the book of Exodus, where you have a large population of people who are being held against their will, who are being oppressed by something outside of themselves. And what they need is not punishment, but liberation. And that, I think, is a much healthier approach for us to take, especially when it comes to treating addictions, is that we are all oppressed, we all need liberation.
And every crisis has its opportunity. So I really want to keep this positive. I believe with all my heart, I've seen it in my life, in my career, in my personal life, and friends as well as clients and patients, that there's such an opportunity. I know there are recovering people here that, they call them grateful alcoholics, that's one way of putting it, that in that problem is the seed of huge solution and transformation. And that's all I'm going to say.
It's interesting when you say that every crisis is also
an opportunity.
We in the drug policy reform movement are looking at the current economic times as an opportunity, because it's not a coincidence that we ended alcohol prohibition at the beginning of the Great Depression. And the way I explain it to people is this: prohibition is a luxury item. When you got a lot of money in your pocket, when money's coming in good, you can spend some of your time and energy worrying about how your neighbors are cutting their lawn, or what color they're painting their house, or what they're doing, how they're living, what they're watching on television. But if money gets tight, you really don't care what your neighbors are doing unless they're doing it to you. All you care about is keeping a roof over your head and food in your belly. And we just couldn't afford the luxury of prohibition with alcohol after we hit the Depression. And I don't think we can afford blowing $70 billion a year on this drug war under the current economic times. So we're looking at this. I mean, I'm on a fixed income, so I ain't crazy about what's going on now. But the bright spot is that maybe it'll start us focusing. And we've already seen an example of that with Republican Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger not talking about medical marijuana, but talking about legalizing marijuana so they can tax it and make money off of it instead of wasting money and blowing it down the hole. So this is just the beginning of the discussion.
Thanks.
Yeah, good. Yeah,